Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us today. It's a huge honor to be hosting the first ever Benevolent. We have an incredible panel lined up today, and we are excited to answer your questions throughout. For those that don't know us, Benevolent was founded with a unique and ambitious mission to fundamentally change the way that drug discovery and development is done by using AI and machine learning to leverage the enormous wealth of biomedical data across the whole drug discovery and development process. We have developed the Benevolent platform, which is our drug discovery platform, built on powerful data foundations with state-of-the-art machine learning and AI technology. Our technology empowers scientists to decipher vast and complex underlying human biology, find new ways to treat diseases, and personalize medicines to patients. The way we do this is unique in that we bring together the science and the tech. Our scientists co-create our drug discovery platform alongside our technologists, ensuring that this technology then augments and enhances the capabilities of our scientists across the entire drug discovery process. Today, we'll dive into what this actually means for those with their boots on the ground, as we explore why this multidisciplinary way of working is so important. Another reason we are here today is because we are committed to creating a diverse workforce with equal opportunities for all. So I've reached out to you, women in tech, to show how you can apply your tech skills and experience in an industry that has a real world impact, and hope to empower and encourage you to take a leap and join us in this hugely important and growing industry. So let's jump right into it. We'll be discussing an array of topics with our panel over the next 45 minutes. Where we will have a short break halfway through to answer your questions. So please do post them in the comment section as we go along. Once we have finished the panel, we will then go into our roundtable discussions, and we've got some more amazing Benevolent people to join in for you to meet and discuss with. But first, introducing our amazing panelists. We have Anna, who is our lead bioinformatician within our knowledge graph. We've got Aileen, who is one of our senior AI scientists within our precision medicine function. We've got Pardy, one of our lead AI scientists across the business. And we've got Sei, who leads the AI science within our metrics and evaluation in New York. And for me, my name is Sam, and I will be moderating today's discussion. I work within our talent acquisition team, managing our hiring for tech and product, while also working very closely with the drug discovery teams on all things hiring. So to kick off, let's start with Sei. Can you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to applying your technology skills to drug discovery?
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much, Sam. And hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. So I have a background in physics, and I kind of moved in computational neuroscience. A lot of physicists find themselves. And it was really interesting because I found myself participating in a lot of really highly interdisciplinary projects. And in so doing, I really knew that I wanted to build a career in an interdisciplinary field, applying computational methods to neuroscience in my PhD and then applying them to healthcare. And AI field drug discovery really seemed like a clear choice of how I could do this at scale. And so, I think it's really exciting to be part of this field. And what is particularly interesting is that fields, like computational drug discovery or drug discovery itself is not something that we'll be able to fully automate in our lifetime. So there's all these really interesting questions you get really about how AI can work with drug discovery and how we can fuel, human in the loop intelligent systems, which is, I find, really exciting.
Brilliant, thanks, Sei. And Anna, we'll go over to you next.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's nice to have you here. So I graduated in maths, and I then joined a master program in mathematical engineer. And in that program, I got the chance to learn about mathematical models applied to biology and medicine, and that got me really, really interested in this field in general. So then I decided to do a PhD in computational systems biology. And I think that was really fascinating because I got to study a few diseases, and one of the aims was to try to find targets for those diseases. So that's when I came across the whole drug discovery field, and yeah, here I am.
Brilliant. And Aileen, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone. So I kind of similarly as Anna, I graduated in maths and computer science, and then continued to do a PhD in maths, in graph theory. And then coming out of my PhD, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I really liked research, but the math research seemed very lonely, isolating, slightly with little impact or direct impact that you could see. And I saw my friends going to insurances and banks, and that was not something that I wanted to do. And after quite some time of searching, I decided to move into computational biology, doing about 5-year postdoc, where I mainly worked on genomics, but also on patient data and clinical data. That was still very fundamental in terms of research. The genomic stuff was all in yeast. So towards the end, I was really desperate on getting more translational projects and trying to really work on something that would have impact on people's lives. And that's when I joined Benevolent about a year ago.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And finally, Poddy, over to you.
Hey, thanks, and welcome everybody. Yes, so my own background is in computer science initially, and my academic studies, maybe similar to Aileen, sort of tended towards the theoretical, sort of the very mathematical end of computer science. And so I finished my PhD and I did a couple of postdocs, and I started to realize that while theory was fun and it was, intellectually stimulating, I couldn't really see myself proving theorems for the rest of my life. And so at that point, I started looking around for something else to do. I left academia and I went into industry, and I've been working in applied ML in startups in London ever since. So initially at a company called Swifty, and then at Benevolent for the past 5.5 years. And so one thing is, I wouldn't say I've had a very structured career where it was clear I was going to end up working in AI for drug discovery at the end. But then when I joined Benevolent, sort of as a computer scientist, and started learning more about biology, like I've become really passionate about the problems that we're working on. I think it's, there's hard technical problems, and as Sai was saying, there's these interesting challenges working across disciplines where it's very clear that the computational and the statistical methods aren't going to take us all the way. So it's like, how can we, bring the biologist, or like sort of the human, into the inference algorithm, which I think to me is very exciting. And then obviously, like, another one of my motivations is I do want to, work on things that have some sort of positive impact in the world. And of course, working in drug discovery is a way that you could have potentially a huge positive impact on many people's lives.
Definitely. Brilliant. Thank you. And you've definitely seen the growth of Benevolent for the last 5.5 years. Well, that's the panel, everyone. So we'll jump straight into the questions now. So the first one, which I'm going to start with you, Aileen. Have there been any moments during your career journey that were particularly significant, be they positive or negative? And how did this shape your path to where you are today?
Yeah, so I think there were several moments, and you can kind of combine them under this like overarching theme that sounds quite bland, but being a female in a male-dominated field can be quite lonely and can make you feel like an outsider. So if I went to a math conference, I would be one of the very few women, and most women would be in their later stages of their careers. That also means that during coffee breaks, the big professors would rather flirt with me rather than talking about maths, as they would do with my friends. Then when you go to a meeting where you are the expert on the domain, but you bring a male colleague and everybody just starts talking to them. And that not only is that a challenge because other people just keep underestimating you, but it also starts weighing down on you. So if everybody thinks that you shouldn't be there, or what are you doing there, you start questioning that yourself. And so, for example, one key moment I know kind of I have to laugh about, but I didn't dare to apply to Benevolent for a full-time job. I thought I'm not up to that. I'm gonna apply for an internship, and luckily the person I emailed about the internship I knew, and he said, "What are you doing? You should come and work for us." So luckily, I had people often enough in my life that pushed me and told me off for not believing that I should be where I am. But there were certain moments where I didn't have that, and that definitely has held me back.
So if you want to sort of build on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, building completely on that, I've definitely felt imposter syndrome kind of every step of the way in my career. Often, coming from physics, I was the only woman usually the only woman of color, and earlier in my career, I tended to be one of the younger people as well. So often, my voice was disregarded. And exactly like Aileen says, the more you're disregarded by others, the more you start learning to disregard your own voice internally, which is, the most unfortunate part. And I thought I didn't fit into what kind of the template of successful scientists look like. And, I first thought there was a template of successful scientists, which now I've disabused myself of, which is nice. And so, I previously thought I didn't fit into that template, and that I weighted my own opinions lower than the opinions of those around me. And similar to Aileen, actually, when I started at Benevolent, I pulled my manager aside and I told her, I don't know why you hired me. Like, I don't think I can add any value. And looking back, I mean, it's really crazy that I did that. And, thankfully she stepped in and she was like, no, like just do, you're going to do a great job. She really set me straight. And so I'm really grateful that, I had allies and people who are inspiring me in that way. And, hopefully we can do that here and really inspire you all to really celebrate your own diverse skill set and understand that, the problems that we're trying to solve are really interdisciplinary and complex, and we need, everybody's skills in order to solve this together. So, yeah, I mean, I think Benevolent is a really incredibly supportive environment in which you start working on your, I had imposter syndrome coming in, and slowly I feel like I've managed to disabuse myself of it more and more. Yeah, I mean, I've learned, again, like I said, that there is no cookie cutter of the perfect employee, and that, we really need all hands on deck to solve the problems we're tackling.
Brilliant, fantastic. Anna, Oddy, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I completely understand what they've just mentioned, and I think I'm really glad that we have at Benevolent the right environment to tackle these really unsolvable problems, and we do need all the skill sets that we can imagine. Even someone with a background in economics could have be valuable for developing some models. So I think it doesn't really matter what's the background, to be honest, because we can just apply the skills that we've learned in our domain to drug discovery for sure.
Brilliant, fantastic. So Anna, I'm going to stick with you if that's okay for the next question. For many people, especially women, something that has an obvious impact on their career is having a family, which can create its own very unique set of circumstances and challenges. How has having a family impacted your career, and how do you think companies can best support working parents?
Yeah, so indeed, I have 3 small children, and I truly believe that if I don't work for a company that is family friendly and it's very inclusive, and sometimes the company needs to respect my work schedules, because sometimes there are things that children needs that we need to accommodate in our schedule, and I'm super happy to be working at Benevolent in that aspect. This wasn't particularly easy during lockdown, having 3 children at home, having to homeschool them. But I was truly lucky to be embedded in an environment that would allow me to have a good work-life balance during that time, and when we are not in lockdown as well. So I think it's good that we work for a company that recognizes our work, our talent, and in my case, I've taken 3 maternity leaves already, and I do think that we should be working in a place that doesn't consider maternity leave, for example, as a blocker in terms of career progression, because it's not a blocker. It's part of our lives, and we need to progress in our careers with or without taking maternity or paternity leave, so it shouldn't really matter. So yeah, I think we should be able to be embedded in a really good work-life balance environment, and I'm truly glad that I can do that.
No, fantastic. Thank you for that. Oddy, I know that you have a young family as well, so maybe you could answer that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do have a young family. I've got a daughter who's 2 next week. And so my wife has, also works. She's a senior lecturer in a university in London. And so for me, it's really important, like, to be able to support her in her career as well as progressing in mine. And I think Benevolent is a family-friendly company and has been very supportive of this. In fact, even allowing me to restructure my role at this time where I needed to be able to have maybe a bit more control of my schedule, so I could support my wife at a time that's very challenging for people working in British universities. And I think also on the subject of, I guess, like parental leave, I think one thing that companies can do is offering more support and encouragement for men to take a substantial amount of time for parental leave, because if both parents are taking it equally, then this reduces the gender gap or the impact on women's careers. And also, I think it's good for men to take the time to spend more time with their children when they're small. Like, I took 3 months when my daughter was maybe 9 months old, and I had a really great time. I really appreciated getting to spend time with her. I think if I had another child, I would like to take at least that much time, possibly even more. And I think also the fact that I was able to take this time, it enabled my wife to return to work at the start of the new academic year without being stressed out because she was sending Ada to a childminder when she was small, and she knew she was leaving her with me for the first few months. And so it allowed her to get her career moving again sooner.
Brilliant, thank you. So we're going to open it up to the floor now to cover some questions there. So thank you very much, everyone, for sending in your questions. So first one, any one of you can take these questions, but do you think a PhD is a requirement to work in this area? From a hiring perspective, I know it's not, but it'd be great to hear from either of you from your perspectives.
Yeah, I just want to echo that. I don't think it's a requirement at all. I mean, I'm working on several teams right now, and we have a wide range of education levels in each team. So no, I don't think so.
Brilliant. And yeah, again, we when we're hiring across multiple different roles, it's a case of we don't just look at the academics. We look at a vast array of different experiences and things like that. So definitely don't be put off if you haven't got a PhD. So I'm going to jump to another one. From hearing your backgrounds and lurking on LinkedIn, I've noticed the vast majority of people working at Benevolent in a scientific role have a background in either computer science, physics, engineering, or something along those lines. As a medical doctor with industry experience in medical AI, do you think there might be positions available at Benevolent for a profile like mine?
Well, I can say absolutely yes. We do need, we have a large team of drug discoverers, and we have many translational medicine scientists in the company, and we wouldn't do the work that we do without their help and without their work, of course. So yes, having medical background is absolutely important to our work, because all the scientific insights that you would bring about diseases and about how to treat diseases and drugs would be absolutely important.
Yeah, just add, I think that profile is one that's actually very interesting for us at Benevolent. So that people who are coming from have a domain experience, but they're sort of tech savvy and are interested and excited in using AI, so that as we're all, or me at least as a computer scientist, I'm trying to learn more biology, so I'm always moving towards the domain. So for me, it's really valuable having people that are within the domain that are really motivated to sort of move out and to engage with my work.
Fantastic. So another question I'm going to cover here. Where are the offices based? So we do have offices based in New York and London, but the main bit I'd like to put out to the four of you is how did you manage the current pandemic situation at Benevolent? I suppose I'm going to switch this ever so slightly into how you've all worked and how we've continued to collaborate closely with one another.
So maybe I can start on that. So we've been predominantly working from home since March. There was a short period where we could go to work, when London was not in a lockdown. So I'm in the London office, so what I'm saying is referring to the London office mainly. We've really tried to implement some working practices in the beginning of lockdown in terms of trying to use Google Docs to brainstorm before having a meeting, where you do make then the decisions, so you can work across time zones if people were stuck in other parts of the world. And we had some people who had to go home for family reasons. So we did try to work around all these things. I'm quite glad that we also have because of these things, quite flexible working hours. So if you do have, for example, childcare commitments, that, we work around that, trying to implement these remote working practices. We have just started in my team trying to implement for the coming up lockdown to have an hour every afternoon where we just try and go out to get some daylight, so you're not stuck in your room until it's dark and rainy outside, and until you have some free time to enjoy the sun.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm just there's lots of questions, which is fantastic. So I really do appreciate all of these. I think we've got time for one more, and then we're going to jump into the next sort of round of questions. So I'm going to go to this one. So how did you find picking up the biology from a maths or computer background? I'm a patent attorney with an academic background in molecular biology. I'll try to get to grips with the computer ML side of things, but I don't feel like I'd really fully understand it unless I actually do it in practice.
So when I started my postdoc, I tried learning some biology on iTunes U and just watching some lectures on molecular biology. There's a really good Coursera course where they go through classical papers. So one is the Watson-Crick paper, and it's very good. I can recommend that, but it was really difficult. I think the first year I didn't really grasp what was going on. I didn't really understand the papers. I didn't really understand what my colleagues were talking about. And I think I remedied that by asking plenty stupid questions. I had really, really fantastic colleagues that never made me feel stupid for asking very, very basic questions. And I just kept asking and kept asking for meetings to double check what I'm doing actually made sense from a biological point of view. And there were enough moments where I went away with the numbers and I just thought, like, oh, this looks really great. And they, just, this is nonsense. That was my experience. Paddy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think very similar. Like, I remember in my early days of Benevolent having meetings with the drug discovery scientists, and they would talk about genes as if they were old friends. And I really felt I'm never going to be able to follow what I was talking about. And then over time, from like maybe I guess like a fair amount of self-study, I think things like Coursera, or I think there's a great book called Molecular Biology of the Cell, which gives you like a really good overview of cell biology. And so from doing like a bit of like personal study, and then just from working on projects, became more familiar. And I think probably now I could probably bluff my way through the coffee break at a bioinformatics conference without anyone realizing that I had no formal training in biology or bioinformatics.
Brilliant. I'm definitely still trying to get to that level, Bodhi, to bluff my way through the coffee chats. Okay, fantastic. Look, please, everyone, do keep your questions coming. There's so many that we haven't been able to get to. We will answer some more at the end, but going to get back to some aspects from our end, a little bit more focused on what we actually do here at Benevolent. The problems we work on are very complex, that we have to bring together experts from across science and technology disciplines. So let's start with Aileen, if we could. Could you explain why combining both domains, so technology and science, in this way is so important?
Yeah, so I think biomedical research has undergone a similar trajectory as other fields, where just more and more data is becoming available. It's easier to produce, more modalities become available. And so it really lends itself to the application of AI and machine learning techniques. So there's a huge opportunity to try and understand It's quite like high dimensional and like noisy data, and where traditional methods, what we've used to do in bioinformatics or for drug discovery, don't quite leverage the whole data that they could. So that's the opportunity. At the same time, once you start doing that, you realize that often the data that we're working with is not similar or not very similar to the data that those algorithms were originally developed for. So if you take an image classification algorithm and you want to classify then DNA sequences or chemical molecules, you have to augment that algorithm. It's not going to work out of the box. So really, to work effectively in that domain, you would have to have an understanding both of the tech and of the biology. So you really need to have either several people with different backgrounds working on the same project, and ideally each one of them also understands a little bit of the other side to be able to do this in a sensible way.
Fantastic. I suppose if I could maybe get one more answer from one of you, maybe Anna, if I could go to you.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I think the problems that we traditionally tackle in drug discovery are really complex, and I think that was one of my main motivations to work in this field is really that there's so much data out there and actually way more data than we can understand and digest. So it's really important to be able to apply different techniques, to have different people with different backgrounds involved in these projects to really try to capture, because in most research projects that are published, they capture the low-hanging fruit, but there's a lot of fruit they are missing. And so I think one of the problems that we try to tackle is to do comprehensive analysis and to try to find other fruits that are just as juicy as these low-hanging fruits. And we do need experts across science and other technology disciplines to be able to efficiently try to solve these problems.
Fantastic. So what are the challenges of actually bringing people together from these two seemingly disparate and complex fields?
I think, in my opinion, it really is around communication. When you have these different scientific backgrounds, you speak a different language. Like I said earlier, I for the first year, I didn't understand what was going on when I was reading a paper. Each individual word would make sense, but the sentence didn't. So to break through that, I think it's actually quite a lot of effort, and it can be quite frustrating because you don't feel understood and you don't understand what the other person is saying. At the same time, you're thinking differently about the same problem. So when you actually break through, it can be so rewarding and so much fun. And that's when you actually create really innovative solutions to really difficult problems you wouldn't be able to tackle on your own, just coming from your own field. But I think it's something that is something that has to be active, and it has to be both sides have to commit to it. So I, as a tech person, have to commit understanding the drug discoverer, and the drug discoverer has to commit to trying to understand me. There's nothing that just happens, and I think it's an ongoing process. It's nothing that you've achieved and you tick it off and you think like, no, we communicate well. It's an ongoing process. We kind of have to keep on working.
Brilliant. Sae or Paddy, did you want to have answer anything additional to that?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's interesting when you transition from being an expert in a particular subfield, be it in your undergrad or master's or PhD, and then moving into an interdisciplinary field, because, oftentimes some of the assumptions that have made you really successful in your particular subfield, don't actually kind of get in your way when you're moving into an interdisciplinary field. For example, I did my PhD in computational psychiatry, which sits at the intersection of AI and mental health. And I came in with a physicist mindset with this kind of one equation to rule them all, computational quantitative measures are the only way to go. And then, in collaborating with my colleagues who had a psychology background, it becomes really clear that, so many of the nuances of mental health are just unquantifiable, and you really have to, you're in awe at the complexity of the problem that you're trying to solve. And in in interacting with people from a different background, you realize, okay, like you need to leave some of your assumptions behind, and like everybody kind of needs to come and meet in the middle. And so like, when you think about the problem that we're trying to solve at Benevolent, really accelerating the drug discovery process, thinking about tackling a problem as nuanced as drug discovery, I think the best way to start working in an interdisciplinary way is to really align on the end goal. And I think that's maybe one of the easier things to align on. And then you kind of work your way backwards and see, okay, this is where we need to be. What skills do we need then? And how do we need to work in order to achieve this final goal? And in a lot of interdisciplinary environments, interdisciplinary research and drug discovery right now is new, and so it is a little uncomfortable because you're not really sure, how much tech do we need, how do we include the human in the loop in an effective way, and there's no cookbook, no one's done this before, and so really just kind of stepping in, leaving your biases and your egos behind and saying like, this is going to be really difficult, but really it's worth it because we're all aligned on this final goal. It's, I think, a good way to start.
Brilliant. Thank you. So I'm going to stick with you, say, if that's okay. Ultimately, this way of cross-functional working is key to moving the needle in this field. So how, in your experience, can these challenges be overcome?
Yeah, maybe I can jump in there. I think like interdisciplinary work is really important at Benevolent. And I think when you come to this interdisciplinary work, like things like humility and mutual respect are really important. It's like Sayu was saying, it's very easy to fall into the trap of, assuming that the way of doing things in your discipline and the way you've been trained to do things is the only way or the best way to do things. But different disciplines bring different insights. If there was just one discipline, then I think science would be a lot less interesting. And so for me, like when I think of my history at Benevolent, so coming from a background in computer science, statistics, and machine learning, this means I've got an obvious bias towards things like benchmarks and hypothesis testing and all, very quantitative methods. On the other hand, my colleagues with a biology background will have a much more qualitative approach. They'll want to interrogate data, do an exploratory data analysis, visualize it, and make a sort of an assessment based on what's the biological story that they can tell about an analysis. And I think this can't always easily be translated into a benchmark or a hypothesis test or something very, very quantitative. And I think when I first joined Benevolent, I was probably much more dogmatic about, how to approach problems, taking a very sort of strict quantitative lens. And I think, well, this makes sense in the terms of, machine learning best practices and, doing statistically rigorous work. And it's a sensible goal to work towards. It doesn't, being too inflexible, it made it hard for me to really benefit from the knowledge of my biologist colleagues. And I quickly realized that it was important to sort of take a step back. Like I say, you were saying, throw out some of my biases and take my colleagues' sort of qualitative assessments into account, while still wearing my quantitative hat and approaching things with a quantitative lens, but making sure that other people's perspectives sort of had equal importance in how I was thinking about a problem. And like one of the really great things I think about Benevolent is that because we're so interdisciplinary, it's very common that you're in a group where there's nobody who's the absolute expert on every aspect of a problem, and then recognizing that different people are bringing different expertise, and having a group where everyone is open to taking the lead from different people when their skills are most relevant, and identifying when other people's knowledge or background complements your own. And like these things I think are really important to be able to make progress on the kind of problems we're trying to solve.
Fantastic, thank you. Anna, did you want to have a last word on that question?
Yeah, so I think that we need to recognize that we are all different. We sometimes don't speak the same language, but we can accommodate that, and we should have the humility that Paid was just mentioning to be able to learn new things. I think that's one of the things that excites me about my job, is that every day I can learn a new thing. Would it be on my field or a different field? But I know that if there's a munch and learn session, for example, during lunchtime, I will certainly learn something. If I work with a team of geneticists, for example, which is not my main expertise, so I learn from them as well. And I think that's what I really love about this job is that I'm constantly learning new things. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think from my perspective as well, not being a scientist or a technologist, the knowledge sharing that I've found within the company has just been unbelievable, which is a benefit of obviously bringing the two domains together. So we're going to move on to the last question, and I'd love a little word from you all, if that's okay, and then we'll dive back into some of the questions from everyone. And again, thank you for sending them in, and keep sending them in as well. So in the light of everything we've discussed today so far, how can we make the industry more inclusive and accessible to all? I'll start with you again, Anna.
Okay, sure. So I think as I've been saying, I feel quite privileged, to be honest, to be working in such an interdisciplinary field, which I really, really enjoy. And I think, we have to be able to think differently if we want to solve previously unsolved problems. And in order to do that, I think in order to have this innovative spirit, the ability to think differently and to come up with new approaches to problems that other companies have actually tackled, other pharma companies are working on. We need to have a really diverse workforce. So we have to have people who come from different backgrounds, and I think there's no way to have this innovative and different way of thinking, of solving problems, if everyone is thinking the same way. So that's really my recommendation. I think sometimes when people look at job adverts, they think, oh, I don't fit 100% of these requests. But probably it's enough if you fit 50%. Sometimes, we tend to look for talent, for the potential of the candidate, really. And if you just feel 50%, or maybe sometimes even less, we just have to be confident that you are capable of learning the other 50 during your job. So it's really a matter of having the potential and the willing to learn and to explore new projects. Yeah.
That was a fantastic answer, and I think that will be hard to follow from anyone next. But if anyone has anything to add to that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think one thing that we you go say, please.
Maybe I can just say something quickly about the way that we've kind of grown the New York office. So I joined the New York office when we were just a handful of people, and now we're about 30 people. Kind of our perspective on things was, hire smart people and let them at the problem, let them self-organize and be creative and really tackle whatever aspects of the problem that they think are tractable. And I think that has worked really well. And I think one of the interesting parts about Benevolent, it's like, working at Benevolent is like the weather in the UK. Like you'll be doing one job 1 minute, and then the next minute it'll be raining and you're on another team, and the next minute it'll be sunny and you're on another team. And I think that fluidity is really important because it really teaches you about all the different aspects of what we do, but also it requires you to just be enthusiastic and be willing to learn and be, really committed to the end goal, like I was saying earlier.
I'll let you speak now, Poddy.
Okay, great. Yeah. Just to follow on that, I think one of the things that like as an organization that we can do, and I think other people in the industry, is to really invest in culture, because as we've said, like figuring out how to work in an interdisciplinary way is really hard. And if everyone's got to learn that again from scratch every time they're on an interdisciplinary team, it's not very efficient. So, as an organization, we need to learn about what are the things that work and get that embedded in our culture. And then I think as a wider industry, maybe having events like this or blogs and things like that, and sort of sharing out how can we build an interdisciplinary culture where you can bring together a bunch of people from diverse backgrounds and so they can work together effectively.
Aileen, I don't know how you're meant to follow up those three wonderful answers. So no one would blame you if you didn't have anything to add. But if you do, please go ahead.
It's difficult. I would say, everything has been said. Maybe one thing to add, which sits maybe at the intersection of what Anna said and Poddy just said. if we have a culture of when, you know, to make it more of a culture of the luck that I had, that I emailed someone and said, how about an internship? And that person, the culture of the company is to say, well, we are not going to offer you something below what you should be aiming for. This is what you should be aiming for. Making that part of the culture. And I think that that's something that is happening at Benevolent. But having that more as a formal culture and having it across the industry, the way we don't try to, you know, rip off people and get the cheapest deal on them, but actually trying to give them the support to get where they should be in their own right is something that I would love to see.
Definitely. I think having the fairness and the infrastructure to bring people in at the level that they clearly are is very important. Fantastic. So with that wonderful conclusion, that does bring us to a close from from our panel. Thank you obviously so much for your honesty and openness throughout the last 45 minutes. That was very incredible. I hope everyone at home has very much enjoyed that as much as I did. So if from behind your screens, we could give Anna, Aileen, Oddy, and say a huge round of applause, and then we'll jump into some more questions from everyone. Brilliant. So we do again have lots and lots of questions. I'm not sure how far we'll get into all of them, but we will try our best. And like you said, we are taking a note of these questions. So we will try and put together answers that we can send out externally once we've compiled them and answered them all. So I will jump up to this one, which is coming from a bioengineering background. What would be a typical work day and the type of projects that you work on? And what are the technical skills you look for in interns? Maybe if we go to Anna on this one to start with.
Yes, sure. So regarding the technical skills we look for in interns, that really depends on whether the candidate comes from a chemistry background or you know, a more biological background. Where does it? Where would be the best fit in the company? But so we have an internship program. People can apply to that, and we'll certainly find projects that would suit your interests and our interests. So we would find a good match if you'd be the right intern. Regarding the typical work day and the type of projects we work on, we are, you know, a tech company working on drug discovery. So we ultimately want to find targets for diseases, and we want to make that happen. So we have a set of products in the company that we develop. We have models that we apply. So part of the projects that we work on is to develop these models and these programs to really find targets so that we can apply that in the drug discovery pipeline. Yeah, I hope this answers the question.
Brilliant. Does anyone else have anything else to add to that? Wonderful. I'll go to the next one. So people often say that there is a large gap between research in industry and academia. From your own personal experience in both, do you think this is actually the case? And then to what extent does Benevolent sort of collaborate with university groups working on state-of-the-art research in our field? Oddy, I'll go with you to start with, and then hopefully open it up to the rest.
Yeah, I think that probably there is a bit of a difference between research and industry and research and academia, where, you know, in industry you're focused on the application, right? You wanna solve a problem. So perhaps, you know, in academia you can have a problem where people are making you know lots of incremental progress and you know, producing like interesting maybe theoretical work, but it would not be, you know, an incremental improvement on a benchmark probably wouldn't be enough for me to swap out a component in one of our tools. And so I think maybe one place where I find, at least from my experience in industry, the work is different is that you tend to focus a lot more on the data and your benchmarks than your models. Like I often think, like if I look at my time in benevolence, I may have iterated on benchmarks more than I iterated on model architectures, which is probably the opposite of what it would be if I was working in academia. Not to say I think there's also lots of academics that do really amazing work on creating and releasing data sets. But yeah, I think that's it, where you're looking. You don't always want to have the most cutting edge method. You want to have the algorithm that solves the problem you have at hand, and that could be something that was published 20 years ago or something that was published 2 years ago.
Fantastic. Aileen or Saeed, do you want to add anything to that one?
I can maybe add to the way you work in academia versus how at least we work. And I feel like in academia, because somebody has to have the ownership of that specific project, someone has to be first author, someone has to be last author. There is very little interaction, and kind of it all comes down to you. So you have to write the code, you have to collect the data, you have to pre-process the data, you post-process the data, you have to have the scientific insights of it. So there's like a single project that would run for years in academia. It's just because this one person has to be an expert in like all these different fields. So if you compare that to a project, even if it was exactly the same project, but that would be something that we would run internally, you would have an AI scientist, a machine learning engineer, a software engineer, a translational medicine scientist working on it, maybe a bioinformatician, maybe a data scientist on top of that. So the progress that you make, just because everybody works to their strength and they all work together on it, is exponential to what you do on your own in academia. So it's just the way you work through the problem is very, very different. And for me, that was the big, revelation when I started, that I could, I was stuck somewhere and someone would jump and help me and say like, oh, let me do that. I know how to do this. Rather than in academia where you like ask 10 people and nobody has time, maybe over a coffee next week.
I also think what we're seeing more and more in applied AI is that there is this fluidity between and industry. We recently published a paper 2 weeks ago on our gene prioritization method, and we have a publication strategy and are very actively involved in submitting conference papers and posters, etc. So yeah, I think you can do fruitful research very effectively, both in academia and in research and in industry.
Fantastic. So I'm going to just ask 2 more questions, and then we will jump into the round tables. So yeah, I'm actually going to stick with you on this one, if you don't mind. Please pass it off if you don't want this one. But how do you organize workflow for different projects and balance business and research goals?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. We do work in an agile framework, and we have objectives and key results that we set on a 3-month horizon, and then smaller objectives for every 2-week sprint. While you do kind of the more like product related work, things that are more process oriented or like more confined analyses can be done in this way, but I think we're moving more and more in a direction where we have the product related work that is organized in this agile way, and then free time, like we just implemented something called challenge days, where you dedicate a whole day to a totally creative blue skies research idea. We have personal development time where you can also do this, and there are also teams that are kind of making a distinction between this kind of deadline related oriented work and more open unstructured research work. So I think we have to make sure that the research we do is in service of our goals, our scientific goals and our business goals, but we are really making space for that unstructured research.
Fantastic. Did anyone else want to add anything to that one, or shall I jump into the last question? Perfect. So I'm going to put you all on the spot for 30 seconds maybe to answer this one. But how do you see the future of AI in drug discovery? What are the opportunities? So we'll start with Aileen for this one.
Huh. Okay. I think it's gonna be great. What can I say? I think we have more and more data. There's more modalities. It's just bound to be a big breakthrough at some point. We are not quite there yet. We are like really doing our best to get there, and they're really promising results. But I think with just better methods and cleaner, nicer data and more data and different modalities, there's no way it can't work in my mind.
Yeah, I can follow up on that. I think there's a lot of potential, but the problem is that we don't need only a lot of data. We need good data, and I think that's what we need to work on, and that's what Benevolent is working on. We need to generate, and in the case of drug discovery, we need to generate experimental data that is suitable for AI and ML. If we don't have that, I'm afraid we won't be as successful as we should be.
And kind of on the back of that data, or that message, we need good data, but then we need good methods and know how to use that good data in the most effective way. And I think that's a really hard question, but we're really trying, really enthusiastic about tackling that. So I think we have a limitless opportunity here, and I'm really excited to see where things go.
Yeah,
Oddy, you've drawn the short straw.
Like everyone else, I'm very excited about the opportunities for sort of AI and machine learning within drug discovery. I think we're at a really interesting time because there's more and more good public data sets are being put together. So people are releasing large data sets with sort of data science in mind. Things like UK Biobank, Human Cell Atlas, and then maybe older you've got things like TCGA or the Cancer Dependency Map. And so leveraging these data sets are providing a foundation on which you can start fitting reasonably complex machine learning models. But then also, as Anna was saying, I think there's the ability to generate data. It's becoming cheaper, or the types of data that we can generate is better, or we can generate more data at scale. And so I think the fact that we can form hypotheses, derive some data, feed that data back into a model, and sort of iterate with a wet dry cycle is really exciting for me.
Fantastic. So I think that's all we've got time for now. So again, thank you to our wonderful panel. So thank you, Anna, Aileen, Sayi, and Paddy. You've all been amazing and truly inspiring to myself. I'm very grateful that I can actually work with the four of you. Thank you as well, everyone, for joining us today. It's been a huge pleasure. And great fun from my end. Obviously, we'd wish that you could all be in a room together, but maybe next time.